100,000. That's roughly how many vehicles Toyota recalled in America because of a defect inside the engine. Metal machining debris left behind during manufacturing, capable of causing the engine to fail outright. Toyota, the brand this entire country treats as the safe answer. And here's the part nobody says out loud. That's not one bad batch. Engines across almost every manufacturer are failing earlier and more expensively than they did 20 years ago. And it isn't because the engineers got worse. It's because of 5 specific decisions the whole industry made on purpose, and every single one of them moved the cost onto whoever owns the car after year 4. That's you. I'm Ray, and this is Honest Motors. I don't sell cars. No manufacturer pays for this channel. Nothing here is sponsored, and nobody's buying me lunch to be nice about anybody. What I do is read the stuff most people never open: the recall notices, the technical service bulletins, the class action settlements, the reliability data, and tell you what's actually in them. Hit subscribe before we start. It's free, and this is the sort of thing that stops somebody signing for the wrong car this weekend. Right, where this comes from, because I'm not asking you to take my word for it. The recall numbers come off the Federal Safety Database at NHTSA, which anybody can search by their own vehicle identification number in about a minute. The reliability patterns come from the major owner surveys and from published class action settlements, which are public record. The repair costs are what independent shops quote in America, not dealer list prices. And where I'm telling you something is a pattern rather than a documented figure, I'll say so. 6 causes, counting up to the one that's doing the most damage right now. Let's go. Number 6. Oil change intervals got longer and almost nobody adjusted. 20 years ago, the standard advice was every 3,000 miles, and honestly, that was often more than necessary. Then manufacturers moved to 7,500, 10,000, and on some vehicles even further, and the oil chemistry genuinely improved to support it. Here's where it goes wrong. Every manufacturer publishes 2 maintenance schedules, a normal one and a severe one. And severe doesn't mean rally driving. It means short trips where the engine never fully warms up, extended idling, stop-and-go traffic, towing, dusty roads, extreme heat or extreme cold. Read that list again and think about how most Americans actually drive: school run, 12-minute commute, drive-through, sitting in traffic. A very large share of drivers in this country are on the severe schedule and have no idea because the dealer handed them the normal one. Oil that stays in an engine too long stops protecting it. It oxidizes, it thickens, it stops carrying heat away, and it starts leaving deposits behind. On modern engines with tight tolerances and narrow oil passages, those deposits do real damage, and on some designs they clog the very passages that feed the parts most likely to fail. The honest bit? I'm not telling you to go back to 3,000 miles. That's wasteful, and it isn't necessary. What I'm telling you is to open your manual, find the severe schedule, read the conditions, and be honest with yourself about which column you're in. That's free, it takes 5 minutes, and it's the cheapest engine protection available in America. Number 5. Direct injection solved one problem and created another. For decades, fuel was sprayed into the intake port, where it washed over the back of the intake valves on the way in. Nobody designed that as a cleaning system, it just happened, and it kept the valves clean for the life of the engine. Then, for efficiency and emissions, the industry moved to spraying fuel directly into the cylinder. Better power, better fuel economy, real gains. But now nothing washes the valves. And the engine's own emission systems route oil vapor and exhaust gases back through the intake, where they bake onto the valve stems and build up into hard carbon deposits. The result shows up as rough idle, misfires, hesitation, a check engine light, and lost power, usually somewhere between 50 and 90,000 miles. The fix isn't a bottle of anything from the parts store. It's walnut blasting, physically media blasting the deposits off the valves at roughly $400 to $700, and it's a recurring service, not a one-time repair. The honest bit? Plenty of direct injection engines run a long time without ever needing this. It depends heavily on the specific design, on how the emissions system is routed, and on how the car is driven. Lots of short trips make it worse. Some manufacturers combined direct and port injection specifically to solve it, and those engines largely don't have the problem. If you're buying used, it's worth finding out which system your engine uses and asking whether the valves have ever been cleaned. Number 4. Cylinder deactivation. The idea is straightforward. Under light load, why run all 8 cylinders? Shut half of them off, save fuel, turn them back on when you need power. On paper, free efficiency. In practice, it means specific cylinders are being switched on and off constantly, tens of thousands of times, with the components that make that happen taking the load. In several widely sold engine families in America, the lifters associated with that system developed a reputation for failure. And when a lifter fails, it can damage the camshaft with it. That's a repair commonly quoted between $2,000 and $4,000, sometimes more. The warning sign is a ticking or tapping noise that gets louder, often with a misfire code. And there's a real cruelty to the timing. It tends to arrive well after the warranty is gone, on a vehicle that's still worth a lot less than the repair. The honest bit? The systems got better in later versions, and enormous numbers of these engines run to enormous mileage with no issue at all. It's a probability problem, not a certainty. But 2 things genuinely matter here. First, oil quality and interval matter on these engines more than on almost anything else, because the system depends on oil pressure to work correctly. Second, if you're shopping used and you hear a tick on a cold start, that's not a quirk. Walk. Quick favor before the top 3. If this is any use to you, tap the like button. Takes a second, costs you nothing, and it puts this in front of somebody who's about to hand over real money for the wrong engine this weekend. Cheers. Number 3. Small turbos doing heavy work. Fuel economy regulations pushed the industry towards smaller engines, but buyers still want the car to move. So the solution was to take a tiny engine, bolt a turbocharger onto it, and get the power of something bigger while testing well on the efficiency cycle. The physics of what happens next are not complicated. A small engine making big power is operating under boost for most of its working life, which means far more heat and far more pressure than a larger naturally aspirated engine ever sees. Heat degrades oil faster, pressure loads bearings harder, and the turbocharger itself is a wear item, spinning at enormous speed, running on that same oil, and it costs somewhere between $1,100 and $2,000 to replace when it goes. Then add what's around it, plastic coolant components sitting next to a very hot part, more sensors, more plumbing, more heat cycling on everything nearby. The honest bit? Turbocharged engines are not automatically fragile. Plenty are excellent and run enormous mileage. What actually kills them is treatment, cheap oil, stretched intervals, and shutting the engine off immediately after hard driving without letting the turbo cool. If you own one, use the oil grade and specification the manual demands, not the closest thing on sale. Stay on the shorter interval and let it idle 30 seconds after a hard run. That's the whole maintenance philosophy for a turbo, and it costs nothing.
Number 2. Timing belts that run inside the engine, in the oil. This one is the least known and does the most damage per incident, and if you take one thing from this video, make it this. Most people know an engine has either a timing chain, which normally lasts the life of the engine, or a timing belt, which gets replaced on a schedule. Fine. But some manufacturers went a third route, a rubber belt running inside the engine, submerged in the oil, for noise and efficiency reasons. Here's the failure. As that belt ages, it degrades and sheds material into the oil. That debris circulates, and it can clog the oil pickup screen, the strainer the oil pump draws through. Once that's blocked, oil pressure drops, and an engine without oil pressure doesn't last long. And if the belt itself lets go on an interference engine, the pistons meet the valves and it's over. The warning signs: a rattle on startup and oil disappearing with no leak on your driveway. The precautionary belt service runs roughly $1,000 to $1,800. Letting it fail means a replacement engine, frequently more than the vehicle is worth. This design appeared across a number of small engines sold in America and Europe, and it's caused enough grief that manufacturers have issued extended coverage on some affected engines, which is exactly the kind of thing a company only does when the problem is real and widespread. Newer versions of several of these engines were switched back to a chain. The honest bit: the question isn't the badge, it's the specific engine in the specific car. Before you buy anything used, find out 3 things. Is it a chain or a belt? Is the belt wet or dry? And when was it last done? If the seller doesn't know, that's your answer about how the car's been maintained. A cheap car that eats its own engine was never cheap. All right, number 1. If you've stuck with me this far, do me a favor and subscribe before I say it, because this is the one that breaks the assumption most Americans are running on. Number 1. Defects that make it into production, including at the brands you trust most. Start with what happened at Hyundai and Kia. A widely used engine family had a manufacturing issue involving debris left in the engine, which could restrict oil flow to the bearings. The result was engine failure and, in some cases, fires. It ended in one of the largest engine-related recall and settlement actions in American automotive history, covering millions of vehicles, with extended warranties and a compensation program. Now the Toyota one, because this is the part that ought to change how you think. Toyota recalled roughly 100,000 vehicles in America, trucks and luxury SUVs, over machining debris left inside the engine during manufacturing, capable of causing the engine to knock, stall, or fail. Toyota's remedy in many cases was replacing the engine. I want to be fair here because I'm not trying to knock Toyota. They found it, they reported it, they replaced engines. That's the system working. But the lesson underneath it is the one that matters. No badge makes you immune. The safest brand in America shipped an engine defect measured in the tens of thousands of vehicles. Which means the strategy of just buy the reliable brand and stop thinking is not a strategy, it's a hope. The honest bit, and it's actually good news, every one of these was made public, documented, and searchable. Recalls are free to fix forever at any franchise dealer, regardless of how many owners the car has had, and an enormous number of recalled vehicles in America are driving around right now with the work never done because the notice went to somebody who moved 5 years ago. So here's the thing I actually want you to do today, and it costs nothing. Find your vehicle identification number. It's on the driver's side dashboard through the windshield, on the driver's door jamb sticker, and on your registration and insurance card. Go to the Federal Safety Database at NHTSA and put it in. It will tell you every open recall on your specific vehicle. If something comes up, call any franchise dealer for that brand and book it. They fix it free. You don't have to have bought the car there, and you don't have to be the original owner. Do it for your car. Do it for whatever your kid is driving. It takes about 2 minutes, and it's the highest value thing in this entire video. And one more thing that costs you nothing, whatever you drive. Learn to read your own oil once a month. Engine cold, car on level ground. Pull the dipstick all the way out, wipe it, put it back, pull it again, and actually look at it in decent light. 3 things. The level. Low oil is the quietest engine killer there is. Most people never look until a warning light comes on, and by then it's been running low for months. Modern engines with tight tolerances have less margin for this than older ones did. The feel. Rub a drop between your fingers. Good oil is slick.
If it feels gritty, that's metal, and metal in your oil means something is wearing out upstream. The color and consistency. Dark is normal. Dark is just oil doing its job. What you're looking for is milky, like coffee with too much cream in it. That means coolant is getting into the oil, and that's a head gasket or worse. Catch it early and it might be a few $100s. Ignore it and you're buying an engine. While you're there, take the coolant cap off, engine stone cold, never hot, and look for an oily film floating on top. Same warning, other direction. 2 minutes a month with a paper towel. You don't need a scan tool and you don't need me. You need daylight and your own eyes. Quick run-through. 6. Oil intervals stretched, and most drivers are on the severe schedule without knowing it. 5. Direct injection stopped washing the valves, and carbon builds up. 4. Cylinder deactivation put specific components through tens of thousands of cycles. 3. Small turbos run hot and hard for their entire lives. 2. Wet belts shed material into the oil and can starve the engine. 1. Defects reach production at every manufacturer, including the ones you trust, and the fix is free if you check. And here's what I actually want you to take away, because it's bigger than any of these. Complexity is what costs you, not the badge. Every one of these 5 decisions bought something real: efficiency, emissions compliance, power, a quieter engine, and every one of them added something that can fail after the warranty is gone. The engines that quietly run to 300,000 miles in this country aren't magic. They're the ones with less bolted onto them, running below their limits, doing the same job they were doing 5 years ago. So, over to you. What's the highest mileage you've ever put on an engine, and what was it? And if you've had one let go early, tell me what the shop said the cause was. That's genuinely more useful to the next person than anything I can read off a database. And if I've got something wrong, say so and be specific about it. I'd rather be corrected than be wrong twice. If this helped, hit like and subscribe. That's how these keep coming. This video is based on publicly available recall notices, technical service bulletins, reliability surveys, published settlement information, and independent repair cost data current at the time of publication. Individual vehicle outcomes vary depending on maintenance, mileage, and history. Some models may have had subsequent updates, recalls, or improvements. Always obtain current information and a proper independent inspection before making any purchase decision.